Hello again. You've caught me just finishing off the jigsaw. I discovered there was a piece missing. It just goes down there at the bottom. I'll finish that later. But it reminds me, there's still some missing pieces for us here. We're talking about crime statistics and deviance. We recognize that it's the police and the courts and prisons who might provide statistics, but how are they communicated to the rest of the public? And so the missing piece that we haven't yet considered is the media, because a lot of the information that we get about crime and about deviance is facilitated by the media. Things are communicated from police officials or from police data, or a journalist will go and look up all the crime statistics, put together the story, and then present it to the public. But observations have been made about what happens in the stories that are produced about crime and presented to us through the media. Generally, there's a tendency to emphasize that which is violent. It would seem that which threatens or enrages the community is the thing that sells papers. And so there's an emphasis on the violence. There is an emphasis on those aspects that are going to stir up people. Now, whether they are good representations of the statistics or not is not quite so important as how it communicates the story. And in that, the development of the idea of what the criminal deviant looks like and does. Now, quite often when they are producing stories about crime, then there is this association made in the media between the crime and social decay. And certainly social decay is what the public doesn't want to hear about. We don't want to hear about people who are defying the law, they are creating chaos, they are creating pain, and they could be attacking me in some way. So this narrative that is created is something that the general public does not want to be a part of. Normatively, it's a way of reinforcing the boundaries around what is good society. And these are the ways that crime data are presented to us and the outcomes of the way that those stories are being presented. There is also the dramatization of what takes place. There is the innocent victim who is portrayed as suffering at the hands of an unknown assailant. You'll often see them in the reenactments that take place in crime stories or in investigative journalism that is often shown to us on the TV. The dramatization, especially when they can show this older lady with whom we can have empathy and support, and this terrible other person who we don't know, but absolutely terrible what they've done. And yes, it might be, but the frames that the media use help to shape what deviance is, how it's presented, how it's understood, and influences the effects that it has on the general public. Now, quite often too, there will be emphasis placed on things like youth or ethnicity. How many times have you heard stories reported about the crime committed by an Aboriginal youth or by someone of a Middle Eastern appearance? So again, we have these framings and this shaping in the mindset of the public of what it is that is happening and how terrible that is, but it's okay. It was by this other. It was by this other group over there. There's also an emphasis on the violent aspect of the crime, even if the crime was about theft. And the data shows us that most crime is about theft, and most crime doesn't involve violent acts as well. Now, we've got a bit of a question that we need to ask here. So if police are the ones producing the data and the media are the ones who are presenting the data, why is it that we are getting the data presented to us in this way? Surely the police must know that their crime statistics aren't being properly represented. And surely the media runs the risk of the police saying, well, we're going to start our own media. We're going to go it alone without you. There's a recent study by Allen and his associates looking at the way that New South Wales police have started to engage in not just with the traditional media, but also branching out and looking at social media, so that what they are doing and the way they're communicating with the public is not being mediated by the traditional media, so they can tell the stories themselves. However, they also note that there is this complex arrangement between the police on one hand and traditional media on the other hand. Traditional media is dependent upon the police for its information and for its data. So they need to maintain some sort of positive relationship with the police force and with others so that they get the information that they are able to use for their stories. And it would seem too that the police provide stories that have a particularly high profile, things that will have a high profile, the things that report violent stories or something very unusual that's taken place. They understand that it will be given a higher profile. But how does that help the police? We know that it helps the media to sell papers, but does it help the police? Yes, it does. Because in a way, they are able to say, these are the terrible things that happen, but we are the ones who are working to keep the nation safe. We are the ones who are working to solve these crimes and resolve these crimes and to ensure safety within the community. So in a way, in presenting the stories, there is this legitimacy that is offered to the police in the way that the stories are portrayed. So there are arrangements that are taking place subconsciously or otherwise between police and the way that they use their data and the media in the way that they tell their stories. Another outcome of the police sharing information with media is that media is then able to provide supports and helps to the police, looking for witnesses, asking for people to come forward. And in that way, they are also able to expedite the way the crime is addressed. But not only that, it's also been shown that in giving high profile to certain crimes, that legislation has been able to be changed and moved through much more quickly so that the circumstances that gave rise to a crime will be addressed and those social dynamics will also be changed. It's really interesting when we look at different institutions and organizations in our society. In what way do they have dependency upon each other? In what ways are they separate? And in what ways do they benefit and what the outcomes of their relationships? So as you consider deviancy, as you consider further crime statistics, think too about the relationships between the different social structures and organizations and the way that they work together to produce the narratives about deviancy and also the narratives about those who are protecting us in society from things that might be deemed harmful. Bye.